So this talk and reflection is part 2 of a series on Bodhicitta. And Bodhicitta literally means awakening, being, heart, mind. Citta, heart, mind, in the Asian script, they're really considered the same. And it's about love and really refers to the many flavors of love. It could be the love that we experience when we're holding, a newborn infant, or when we're accompanying a beloved who's dying, or it could be the love, the affection that just surges up when we're with a pet, or when we're seeing some sort of beauty, or when a friend is experiencing loss. There's all these flavors of the heart responding with tenderness, that the common denominator is the falling away of a sense of a separateness and a feeling of belonging to this field of aliveness. And a bodhisattva, it's an awakening being, is a being who lives out of bodhicitta. That whatever the flavor of love, the bodhisattva's life is being informed by that. The behaviors, the expressions. And the bodhisattva is an archetypal figure. And for me, my favorite understanding is the bodhisattva is an archetypal figure that really represents our evolutionary capacity. This is the fully awake heart, what's possible for us. And I like the evolutionary perspective because you can really see it in terms of the brain's unfolding, that in the most recently evolved part of our brain, there's a neural net, there's circuitry that's completely dedicated to social relating. And it's basically in humans, and it's also, of course, other creatures, but survival and flourishing depends on the activation of this part of our brain. And you can see that the more the strength of our togetherness, our capacity to cooperate, it's what's made possible the greatest medical advances and the great, in terms of all scientific research. It's also what makes a sports team successful. And it's what allows students to learn the best when they learn cooperatively. And when we face natural disasters, it's what helps us pull out. And when we want to move towards peace, that capacity to reconcile and cooperate moves us towards peace. So this part of our brain, and that's the physiology of it, but really in a bigger way, this bodhicitta, this awakening heart-mind, is what we're evolving towards, living from fully. And as I mentioned, it's not just humans. You can see it's what allows other creatures to be successful, the pro-social species like the ants and the bees and so on. One of my favorite illustrations is this guy's driving in the country and he's looking at his map and he, by mistake, kind of drives off the road and gets stuck in a ditch. He's not hurt, but his car's stuck, so he has to go get some help. So he goes to a nearby farm, and very friendly farmer says, "Oh, Warwick can help you." So it turns out that he goes, "Yep, Warwick can do the job." So Warwick's a very old, haggardly-looking mule. So here's how the story goes. Farmer hitches the mule to the car, and with a snap of the reins, he shouts, "Pull Fred, pull Jack, pull Ted, pull Warwick." And the mule pulled the car from the ditch with very little effort. So the man's amazed. He thanks the farmer, pats the mule, and says, "Why'd you call out all those other names before you called out Warwick?" Farmer grinned. He said, "Oh, Warwick is just about blind. As long as he believes he's part of a team, he doesn't mind pulling." This togetherness, not only does it serve the group, it serves each of us, because we call on our greatest resources when we feel a sense of belonging to something larger. It's really one of the main characteristics of happiness, feeling a sense of belonging to something greater. So the first many tens of thousands of years of our human history, as this brain is developing, as it turns out, we, for sure, were bonding, but more exclusively in small groups. And everybody that wasn't part of that small group was not part of our bonding domain. So they became the unreal other and the enemy. And it was really group cohesion was necessary for survival. But it was kind of a limited pro-social behavior. And what is reassuring is that you can sense the circles are widening in terms of who we consider part of us. Widening and widening. So this networking region, our brain, actually allows us to perceive not just our family or our close ones, but all species and all of life. And that, for many people, when they get that experience of, wow, I'm connected to this dog or this plant or this other creature, that feeling is so enlarging. Many of us know that one. I was sharing this the other day at a workshop, and somebody sent me a card that has two dolphins talking. And one saying, one of these days, I want to swim with a fat, hairy investment banker. And the other saying, yes, I've heard it's quite magical. That was my favorite of the month, you know. So in a very direct way, this region of the brain and really the whole spirit of bodhicitta, when it's activated, when we're connected, when it's enlivened, it brings healing. And when it's disconnected, when it's shut down, you can see how it's really responsible for the trouble we have on this planet. When we're disconnected from bodhicitta, it enables us to be cruel to animals. It enables us to violate the earth without sensing we are earth. The earth is our body. Naturally, when it's not activated, we violate other humans. We see other humans as different and other, and it leads to all forms of injustice and oppression. So it's for the healing of our planet that we cultivate bodhicitta, because what it allows is a heart space that's truly inclusive. We begin to act on behalf of all of life. It's that line from Dorothy Hunt I love so much, that where she talks about the heart space where everything that is welcome. So one of the easy or more elegant, in a way, descriptions of the spiritual path is that movement from being identified as a separate, solid self, where we're operating off of attachment and fight, flight, freeze, to a sense of identity that's really inclusive, that experiences belonging to life, to awareness. And when that shift happens, what enables that shift, and what happens when we've shifted in that way, is rather than fight, flight, freeze, it's attend and befriend. So we're going to continue in this class exploring that shift in identity that really allows this full emergence of bodhicitta, that allows us to really be the bodhisattva, live from bodhicitta. One of the lines from Rilke that describes that aspiration and that path has just a simple line. He says, I live my life in widening circles that reach out across the world. I may never be able to complete this last one, but I give myself to it. So there's this sense of dedication to not pushing anything out of our hearts, keeping widening and widening until our beingness and our heart really includes life without exception. So we'll particularly focus on, so how do these widening circles work? Because the first circle is the life that's right here, and we can't skip over it. Okay? The idea, this kind of idealism where I'm here to serve the world, to have that and not listen to and be tender towards and open to the vulnerability that's right here is a bit of delusion. It's an ideal. So widening circles means we have to keep on coming back and saying, okay, what's right here? So explore that, how we bring attend and befriend here and then widen it out. And the challenge that we'll be looking at, as many of you know, is that even when we get that taste of, really get touched and really sense, yes, this is really my life. I really want to open and include and feel this open-heartedness. We get rehooked every day. Most people I know. I mean, every day we get caught in that trance, that self-trance of kind of the conditioning of the survival brain that's saying, well, how do I make myself more comfortable, and what do I have to avoid, and what's going to go wrong? And then that reactivity when we're uncomfortable, the way we get triggered so easily. Every one of us gets hooked. So just to begin to notice how that trance happens for us in a daily way is the beginning of honestly awakening bodhicitta. There's a parable that some of you might remember that I think is a real useful one. Okay, so it was the coldest winter ever, so cold that many animals froze to death. In an effort to save themselves from this icy fate, the porcupines decided to gather together to fend off the chill. They huddled close to each other, covered and protected from the elements and warmed by their collective body heat. But their prickly quills proved to be a bit of a problem in close proximity. They poked and stabbed each other, wounding their closest companions. The warmth was wonderful, but the mutual needling became increasingly uncomfortable. Eventually, they began to distance themselves from one another, scattering in the forest only to end up alone and frozen. Many died. It soon became clear they would have to choose between solitary deaths in the frigid wilderness and the discomfort of being needled by their companions' quills when they banded together. Wisely, they decided to return to the huddle. They learned to live with the little wounds caused by the close relationships with their fellows in order to benefit from the collective heat they generated as a group. And in this way, they were able to survive. To take it one step further, not just to survive, but on the Bodhisattva path, there's no way to really wake up unless we're willing to hang in with each other. Because the real freedom comes in realizing that we're not this self, the story that we take ourselves to be, and we cannot discover that until we go ahead and hang in where the vulnerabilities come up with each other. And in that hanging in, discover the love and the awareness that shines through all of us. We need to wake up that way. So the first step is to recognize how, like the porcupines, we start getting needled and we say, hey, I'm out of here. On some level. Sometimes we say we're out of here by fighting and blaming, and sometimes it's by withdrawing. But how we need to be able to see how that happens. And in the process of looking, as we start examining our lives more closely and more honestly and say, okay, how do I create separation? The key attitude is one of being interested and truly not judging ourselves for going into a reactive trance. It's like everything else I'll say about the trance is not useful if the process is built around judgment. Because that's just another part of the trance, is judging. And every one of us is rigged to perceive separation, and at least for a season, when I say a season, some years of our life, be really identified in a separate egoic self. That's just that's the design. I think of this, the self-centeredness of children. I think of this I've always loved this. One woman describes driving the carpool, and she's picking up little Chris for preschool, and she notices an older woman who's hugging him as he leaves the house, and so she asks him, "Well, is that your grandmother?" And he said, "Yes. She comes to visit us for Christmas." And I said, "How nice. Where does she live?" "Oh, at the airport," Chris replied. "Whenever we want her, we just go out there and get her."